Good morning guys, Chris the Ultimate Recycler. Firstly, apologies for the audio. My normal microphone's flat, so I've just got the dodgy camera one this morning, or the phone one. We're off on our farm trip. It's episode 8. I'm on the road, I'm half an hour in. It's just after 8 o'clock. Only seen one kangaroo jump in front of us so far and we've missed him. Those of you in Australia will well know that driving at dawn and driving at dusk are the worst times for kangaroos on country roads. Anyway, we're having a good trip so far. It's going to be a big day, well, a big week. It's Tuesday morning. I'm going to be staying there till Friday lunchtime. So we should probably get a couple of videos out of this one. We have a lot of machinery being picked up that I sold on eBay. And the good thing is, for those of you that watch the eBay auctions finish, a lot of the stuff that didn't sell, I threw on Facebook Market Price at pretty much the same price. I adjusted a couple, and most of the stuff is sold. So we've got people coming from everywhere this week to pick stuff up, which is great. We should make some good progress cleaning up some of the farmyard. We're going to get back into the barn and maybe finish that. We're going to look at some of the other sheds and start emptying some of the junk and just getting organised. Probably get a couple of videos out of this trip. We'll catch you at the farm. See you then. Bye. Okay guys, I made it to the farm okay. The trip was pretty uneventful and I've just been organising a few things. We've just had people come and pick up a couple of things. The meat saw from the eBay auctions, guy picked that up. He was pretty happy with it, so that's gone. I was going to try and get some video of everything leaving, but sometimes when there's lots of people here, it's a bit hard to keep up. I had some great success putting stuff on Facebook Marketplace, the things that didn't sell on eBay. And we'll just walk down the lane here while I'm talking. The harrows, the 6 heavy-duty harrow sections, we had 600 on eBay, no takers. Threw them on Facebook. I thought I'd do 500 for the lot. And I had quite a few people message me, and a local farmer's just come and picked them up, and he's seen good value in them. So that's gone, and the beauty there is that there's no fees through Facebook, so $500 cash in the kitty there. The other harrows with the little bar and the wheels each end have sold for 100, which is what we had them on eBay for. People coming this afternoon to look at them or to pick them up. They also want to have a look down the machinery graveyard, and they're into repurposing and upcycling, and they like rusty metal. So there's no shortage of that around here. They're going to have a look while they're here, bit of a browse, bit of a shopping trip. We also have other people coming later in the week to do the same thing. So that's good. I'll show you a few items I'm going to put on eBay or maybe Facebook next time while we're walking around. And then we'll go and see what else I managed to get rid of. Now this is an old moldboard plough, one of the early. It would have originally been horse-drawn, a couple of nice wheels on it. The wheels on the other side have tyres, and clearly that one's no good. But it's a nice old early piece of farm equipment, and I wanted to show you guys a great example of, shall we say, farming ingenuity or early upcycling. I was looking at this before and thought, this is interesting. They've made a pivot bar along the top here, which connects via some linkages to raise and lower the back wheel axle. So the wheels are offset. By operating that linkage, it actually alters the height of the plough, or essentially the depth of how the tines dig into the soil. But back to this pivot here, it's an axle out of something, and they've welded on the end there, and that's definitely an axle stub out of an old truck, and they've welded onto something else there. It's a mishmash of all sorts of bits of metal, but get a load of the pivot points. Mechanics will recognise these. They're actually con rods. They're large connecting rods that would have connected the crankshaft to the piston, and the size of those they must have had out of a decent old motor, maybe a tractor engine, and they've used con rods as standoffs for that shaft. I thought that was pretty cool. So anyway, talk about repurposing or upcycling. This happened a lot in farming days. You made use of what you had, and some of the guys were pretty inventive with a welder. So anyway, we've got to sell this. It was actually kind of earmarked to a distant relative who was interested in it for their garden, and apparently they're now leaving the area, and they don't want it anymore. So will we put it on eBay and try and auction it? Will we sell it on Facebook? I'm not sure. It's going to be difficult to move because I think it's probably wider than 8 feet, so it'd be a little bit tricky to take on the highway on a trailer. We would need obviously the loader to lift it on, which isn't a problem. If it sells locally, well, you can't really tow it far, I suppose. And how much do we ask for it? Well, the thing would weigh at least a ton, so there's a few $100 scrap metal, but I'd probably get $100 for that wheel alone at the shop. The wheel at the front I'd get 75, so I reckon we'll maybe ask 500 and see what happens. We might find a buyer at 500. No harm in trying. So that's one thing that's going to go next. Whether we use eBay or Facebook, I'm not sure. Probably Facebook, I guess, because all the local buy, swap and sell groups, it exposes a lot of people with properties within an accessible distance, whereas eBay is you know, so far afield that people message me from Queensland and say, I want it, but how do I get it there? And for those of you that don't know, Queensland's like 2,000 kilometres or so from here, so it's just not practical in a lot of cases. We have a lot of scrap metal and stuff here that I think these people that are coming along this afternoon might like to have a fossick in. They might find something for their yard or their upcycling projects. I don't want to, I'd much prefer to sell it to people that want to reuse something than send it all for scrap metal. There's quite a lot of value here in steel, but I think I'd rather let people pick through and just do deals on stuff that's interesting, and then at the end of all the big cleanup we can just call the scrappy in. Now, something else I want to show you, which is around the other side of the yard. For those that have been watching these farm series videos, you'll notice that the lane's looking really neat. In fact, it's no longer a lane, the fence has been removed. Ross is doing a great job cleaning up, and we're gradually reducing the amount of stuff he has to work around, so it's working out well. Let's go for a walk around the other side. Now, it's quite windy out here now. It's just on dusk, and I'm going to premise this part of the video with the question, doesn't everyone have a crazy uncle? This wagon I'm about to show you was going to be, we were going to sell it. I was thinking of either putting it on eBay or Facebook, but recently my uncle and auntie stayed at the farm for a little bit, and my auntie in particular fell in love with his wagon, and so I think she perhaps in my uncle's eyes qualifies as crazy as well. And what that means is that the wagon's going to find a new home, and we're rather grateful that it's going to be staying in the family. We won't be selling it. It's going to make quite a long journey over to South Australia, and probably be a nice feature on their property, and that's fantastic. It's a beautiful old wagon. It's been here on the farm as long as I can remember. Dad tells me that when our family moved to this property in the 1950s, it was brought from the original property, not far away from here, but they didn't want to leave it with the property when they sold that place. And it would date to the early 1900s, possibly even the late 1800s. It's what they used behind teams of bullocks and teams of probably Clydesdale horses, perhaps. I think mainly bullocks were used in big teams to pull along these wagons, and it probably would have been employed to cart grain or possibly bales of wool in the early farming days, and I think they went quite a way down the road to perhaps where the nearest railway siding was. So it's got a great history, but we can't, obviously, I can't take it to my place, and no one else in the immediate family wants it, so it's kind of cool that my uncle and auntie are interested in taking this and keeping it in the family. Value wise, I was going to throw it on eBay for around about $2,000. Even though it's pretty rough, these wheels themselves generally pull about 500 each. They're a bit rough, as you can see. It's been in the weather for probably the best part of a century, and at one stage this would have been the bottom, and it's been sitting in the dirt and rotted away a fair bit of the timber. But structurally they're still pretty solid. It would roll okay, I think, to get onto a trailer or something. The steel tyres are almost an inch thick, so you can imagine what these things weigh. So a great piece of history. I didn't want to have to take it apart for the wheels, and I never would have got it over to Nagambie otherwise. So you know, now it's going to do a trip to South Australia to reside at my crazy uncle and auntie's place. Okay, now Where we're going to go next? Well, this is kind of the garden side of the farmhouse. A lot of native trees in the front yard. There's been patches out here where Mum's grown pumpkins and tomatoes in the little shade houses and everything. So we're not doing much around here at this stage. Mum still likes to tinker out in the garden. And for those of you who are wondering what the soil's like around here, it's cropping land. There's no rocks. It's nice greys and rich clays. There's some red ground as well. They talk about red ground. Most of it is, in the summer in particularly, goes like this, and it doesn't actually look very fertile, I guess you would say. In the hot summer it dries out and cracks and opens, and sometimes you get cracks large enough that you can almost put your foot down them. And I think it's known in agronomy terms as a self-mulching clay, but it is great for cropping, and it's nice that there's no rocks or gravelly areas. It's just nice soil. Perhaps not so nice when you have a wet year and it turns to mud, because it's very friendly. You can walk along muddy areas of this clay and you grow inches with each step. So it's interesting soil, but it has been brilliant cropping land and cropping soil for all sorts of crops, cereals like wheat and barley, and also legumes such as field peas, and I think they grow vetch and all sorts of things these days. I've never really got into the farming game. I did get a diploma of agriculture, but I didn't follow that up and I became a mechanic. So we all take different twists in our lives. Good morning, guys. It's just after 7:30, might be closer to 8 now. Had a restful sleep after a busy day yesterday, and there's lots going on this morning. Very shortly we have a guy coming to get this high tank stand, or the high fuel tank. And I also have this morning someone to come and get these two old large water tanks. I put them on Facebook just yesterday for free, and we didn't want to have to squash them up and take them to the local scrap metal depot. They're pretty handy. I've seen them used as bus stops at the end of farm driveways, just for a bit of shelter. They get used as wood stack areas, like basically a wood shed on its side, just to keep your wood dry for your homestead fires. The other option I thought of was someone could probably cut that tank. I think it's 6 foot high and it's about 8 foot diameter, probably even a little bit wider. You could cut that into 3 rings and make some really nice large garden bed areas, and with 2 of them there's options galore. So we put them on Facebook for free. Someone's coming to get both of them this morning, so that's great. Hopefully they've got a good use for them, or I assume they would, or they wouldn't have come to get them. This tank, I'm wondering how we're going to get it down. We don't actually have the loader here at the moment. I'm thinking once this tank's out of the road, and these are easy to move because they're just empty and they don't hold water anymore, they're rusted out. I'm thinking we may be able to just tip it over onto the trailer. I'm not sure if it's going to crash down or whether we might have to have a rope to a pulley in the tree to lower it down slowly. Depends how high the trailer is. It's going to be pretty heavy even though it's empty, and it's just on a 3-legged stand. I think the guy said he's got a 10-foot tandem trailer, so hopefully it lays down. We didn't want to have to take it apart, and it might be a little tricky without the loader, but we'll no doubt film what we do there. So they're the first 2 jobs this morning. I do need to go and have another coffee. That's a matter of importance. And what else? We've got other things happening. A guy's coming to get the wool press and the grinding shearer's grinder out of the shearing shed, and that's this morning as well. I'm sure there's people coming to get something else. The lady that was going to get the harrows yesterday couldn't make it, and they wanted to have a browse around, so they're coming, I think, today. So going to be a lot going on. I'll film bits of the loading, and we'll probably wind this video up today, and then tomorrow we'll start looking at what we can maybe market in the next lot of listings. Whether I do eBay, I think I'll try a few on eBay, but it won't be as many. And we'll be using Facebook a bit more. I did put something else on Facebook last night, a little water tank that was in the barn. Let's walk around here. The sun's very low, as you can see our elongated shadows. Beautiful morning, actually. The weather's great this week, which is really nice. After last episode, it was quite hot. Lots of stuff in these sheds. We'll be getting into these sheds in future episodes. Don't think there's any outstanding treasures, but we have to deal with it all. And it's part of the premise of my channel, is what to do with stuff. So yeah, we'll be getting to these in the future. Let's duck into the shearing shed and see that water tank. Oh, by the way, the guy turned up for some of the old haul seats in the barn yesterday, and he got a load. He's coming back today for the rest of them. So that's something else that's happening today. There's the wool press that's going. Yeah, this little plastic water tank, it's a 220 litre. It was purchased for watering tree plantations, and I think it was only used once or twice. So we put $150 on that on Facebook, and there's a guy, well, a couple of people keen, so hopefully that goes quickly as well. And the other thing in here in the shearing shed is this shearer's grinder, so we'll be getting that out today as well. Okay, and when it came time to load this fuel tank, we were scratching our heads wondering how we're going to do it, and Ross comes charging over the horizon in his loader like the cavalry, and it just made the job so much easier. So we just put a sling around the very top breather pipe, and the plan was just to gradually lay it down onto its side, and that process took a little bit of juggling, but it actually went down really nicely. I think I said to Ross that the whole tank could have been full of eggs and he wouldn't have broken one. So just balanced it, or just lay it down. It's only on a 3-legged stand, so it went over quite well. Most of the weight, of course, is in the top tank rather than the frame. And once we had touchdown there, we just repositioned to get a balance point, and it was pretty easy to balance up and then load onto Rex's tandem trailer. So that process all went very smoothly, a lot less dangerous than trying to winch the tank down with its own weight. Maybe with a pulley in the tree or something, but no, this went really well. It fitted in the trailer nicely. I think it only hung over the end by about 8 inches or so, so it was a secure load and safe to tow back. Look how dry the paddocks are in the background. We're just at the end of summer, the start of autumn here. It's the 1st of March, and it's very dry. We haven't had rain for quite a few weeks, but you don't really need rain this time of the year. Well, through summer in a farming district, you want it all to dry off, so just no greenery around at all. Now we have a montage of people leaving with stuff. This is Matt, very happy with his wool press and his shearer's grinder. And then Anne toddles off with her harrow bar and harrows, so something else out of the front paddock. And then a couple of guys came to get these big tanks. Now these were freebies, and we're pleased they went the next day. But I was rather impressed at the ambition of these two guys. The next one's about to come past, turning up just with little 6x4 trailers to pick up these great big tanks. And to give them credit, they did a great job. And they could tie a pretty mean truckie's knot too, so off the tanks go. And last of all, this afternoon, the biggest item to go was the auger. So thanks Shane. He's got a really flash big trailer, and it looks like he's off to fire missiles at someone in some far distant war. But anyway, he should be happy with his auger. Okay, so that finishes another day. We're looking to the east, where we were having the bright sun earlier this morning, you may have seen. Now we've got the long shadows stretching right across the paddock, and it's been a pretty warm day. I actually got a bit of sunburn today, so even though it was only about 24 degrees, but we were out in it a lot. We had a lot of stuff go. I'm glad that everyone didn't turn up at once. They kind of spaced themselves out very nicely, so that was handy. It's been a very productive day. I'm pretty weary. I'm going to call this video here. So we'll do the next part of this trip, this video, well, this part, what are we up to? Part 9. I'll start that tomorrow morning. So it's Wednesday evening now. We've got all of tomorrow, and we've got Friday morning before I have to go home. So I've got to sort a bit more stuff out. We've got a few more people coming to pick up stuff. I'll see you then next episode. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye for now.